Hi, everyone. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Deliberately Intentional with me, your host, Remy Fagbone. Today's topic is taking things personal. Is taking things personal destroying your marriage? I put up a post last week about on my Instagram page. If you're not following, you should be following. But I put up a post last week about whether you are the kind of person that takes things personal. Are you? For a lot of people, they are. I found, let me paint this picture to you. You're happy, both of you are sitting in the living room, you've had a long day's work, and you're both sitting there, and your spouse says something that rubs you the wrong way. Instead of you trying to clarify, it changes the entire mood of the day. Ooh, let me tell you the one that happens in my house. This is a very classic example. My husband comes in and I'm super excited to see him. And he comes in and immediately he wants some time to decompress and what have you. And immediately he's either coming in with an attitude or coming in with some type of mood. And the first thing I'm thinking about is, what did I do wrong? Was it me? Is it me? Did I do something? Most times, that's the thought that we all have. We think that what the other person is doing or saying is targeted to us when it literally has most times nothing to do with us. Are you that person? Do you then respond to things from there and then turn it into something else? Because that's the story for many people. Sometimes it's just a little molehill and we turn it into a mountain because we're not actually understanding our person and we're taking something that they've said or done personal. Let's start by understanding why we often take things personal. The way our brains react to anyone saying anything to us is immediately you're going to want to be defensive. Like, oh my God, is it me? Did I do something? But instead of doing that, why don't you just take a pause? Take a second, because this is something I do every single day. Is this moment about me? Is what this person's saying making sense? Is it true? Is it not true? Who's going to tell me these things if not my spouse? So instead of me getting defensive, I take a pause. In my head, sometimes I count to 10, and I'm in between that counting to 10, I'm actually processing the information. And then I'm trying to say to myself, okay, is what he's saying making sense? As a couple, that's something that you have to do. You do have to look at the other person and think to yourself, is what they're saying about me, is it true or is it not true? And I apply that across the board to everyone. If anyone says anything to me about anything, I first take myself out of the picture and I try and look at it from their perspective. And if you do that as well, you would be able to actually navigate your friendships, your relationships better. But in marriage, this is super important because everything that is you, guess who can see it all? Your spouse. They can see every flaw, permanent, temporary, everything. They get to see it all. So you've got to know how not to take these things personal in order for it not to destroy your marriage. One strategy that I found outside of the one that I gave you is to be empathic. If you practice empathy and you start to look at it from the other person's point of view, it helps you greatly. It helps you not react. It helps you look at it, again, from another perspective. But it also helps you look at about this relationship means more than this one comment. You also got to think long term. Is this something I need to tackle? Is what he's saying true? You should be self-aware enough to know when something that someone is saying to you is actually true or not. Now that's the little tricky spot, because at times when people are saying things to you, especially when it comes from your spouse, the first thing that you want to do is, again, take it on board. There are a lot of things sometimes that my husband might say, or back in the day when he used to just say things in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that's not me. So whether you're saying it or not, I'm not taking it on board because I know that it's not me. There are some things that he said that are under 100% me, but others are not. You've got to be self-aware enough to know what is applicable to you and what isn't. And that's a little tricky for a lot of people to do. Another relatable example that I can give you, because I know that everybody loves these examples, is in life, we're going to change. You can't be with somebody for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and don't think that you're going to change along the way. But as you're changing, is it for the better or for the worse? Sometimes we're not aware of it, but the only person that can see that is always our spouse. And so at times, this very practical example I'm going to give you, I've gotten bigger. I was a 0, I think, when my husband first met me. And then I'm now like a 12. And I'm bringing this size into this story for a particular reason, because like it or not, we are all going to change. He's changed too. I remember what his waist was when we first met, and I know what his waist is looking like now. Now, so how do you bring up something that might be considered sensitive to your spouse when there's not just for them to, maybe not even about them changing, it might be about hygiene. It might be about saying, hey, is everything okay? The best way to go about dealing with things like that is to try as much as possible to find a nice, even way to say it without letting your spouse feel like they're being attacked. Find a way to bring this topic up like, hey, this is what I've noticed. How are you feeling about this? Are you okay about this? Never make it seem as, remember, you're both in this story, this situation together. Whatever happens to your spouse connects to you too. Whatever affects them affects you too. Their body is kind of your body too. That's the way I look at it. And you know what? If you disagree, let me know in the comments below. But there is a way to point out the things that you want to point out to your spouse without allowing them to feel attacked. And that's the point that we all have to strive for. And that's a way that you can also stop taking all of these things personal. Your response is always everything, whether we like it or not. Your response is always everything. How you respond to anything can either uplift or destroy. And that's what ends up taking marriages from that really good spot to a really bad one, because one comment that is not thought about, structured the right way, can truthfully destroy. And that's why sometimes when you take things sensitive, okay, it was too much salt, or there was too little this, or the sheets are rumpled, or oh my God, the list is long. There's so many things that are going to come up between you and your spouse, especially if you're not the most communicative couple. But there's so many things that are going to come up. How you respond is everything. The question I've asked, I'm still waiting for all of you guys to answer. But in conclusion, I'll tell you that the minute that I stopped taking things personal was the minute that I had a better understanding and grasp of my relationship and of my marriage. I realized that my spouse came from his walk of life and from his world different. He was raised different. He's exposed to different things. And all the things that he's exposed to have, they weren't pre-made for me. They weren't. So me coming into his world means that I need to understand him. I need to understand how he does things. And he also needs to understand how I do things. And together, we would both come to a nice understanding and a way for us both not to take each other's comments or criticism personally. And that's why our marriage is thriving. I want all of you to have thriving marriages as well. I want all of you to understand the difference between constructive criticism and also just knowing that the person is just talking. Sometimes they talk. Remember, you're the one that's there 24/7. Sometimes they talk. Do you know the difference between what you should take on board and the things that you should ignore? But I hope that you taking things personally is not destroying your marriage. In conclusion, I hope you guys are following my page. I hope to hear back from all of you. And I will see you here again next week, same time, same place, on Deliberately Intentional. Thank you, everyone. Bye.